Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out why are UK and USA clocks out of sync for 3 weeks every year? Just 3 weeks. I don't know.
Here's a problem for you. There are 52 weeks in a calendar year. For 49 weeks a year, the time difference between the UK and the USA's East Coast is 5 hours. But there's about 3 weeks in which the time difference is only 4 hours. What's going on in those 3 weeks? It all has to do with daylight savings time. The concept of daylight savings time generates very strong opinions. Some people appreciate the extended daylight in the evening, and some people just hate the disruption to their routine. But regardless of how you feel, it's part of a life in many countries, including the UK and the USA, but its implementation differs. This inconsistency often causes confusion between international travelers and businesses because the UK and the USA do not change their clocks simultaneously. In this video, we're diving deep into the history of daylight savings time on both sides of the pond, including why the UK and the US have different schedules and what it means for people on both sides of the Atlantic.
Okay. Y'all be sure to go to GirlCon London and like and subscribe. I've always thought that where I am, which is the west coast of the United States to Britain, is an 8-hour difference. But I guess that does change with daylight savings time. I like having the extra sunlight in the evening because I can get more stuff done. The other way, in the winter, the sun sets at like 4:45 and that's just too early. It feels depressing. It makes me sad. Really sad. Why 3 weeks? Why is it different for 3 weeks? I guess we change it at different times of the year, which would make sense because why would we do it? Why would we do it at the same time, right? I didn't even know that the UK had daylight savings time. I didn't know y'all did that. So I've already learned something.
The idea of adjusting clocks to better use daylight actually dates back to Benjamin Franklin. He was among the first to propose it in 1784, suggesting rather humorously that Parisians could save candle wax by waking up earlier in the summer. However, it wasn't until the early 20th century that daylight savings time gained significant traction. In the UK, the onset of World War I created a very pressing need for fuel conservation, leading to the first widespread adoption of daylight savings time.
For fuel conservation? Really? I've always heard it had to do with agriculture. Kids have to go to school, so we need more light in the morning so they can help their family deal with the crops in the morning. I don't know.
Conservation, leading to the first widespread adoption of very pressing significant traction. In the UK, the onset of World War I created a very pressing need for fuel conservation, leading to the first widespread adoption of daylight savings time.
Okay, so that was in the UK. I didn't hear it correctly. So in the UK, it was to conserve gas around World War I. Okay.
Shifting clocks forward in the summer months basically reduced the need for artificial lighting and heating in the evenings, which helps conserve fuel for the war effort. Germany was actually the first country to implement daylight savings time in 1916, but the United Kingdom quickly followed with their own Summertime Act of 1916. This legislation established British Summertime, or BST, largely thanks to the efforts of William Willett. He was a British builder who championed the cause of using daylight more efficiently. He was a real taskmaster sort of guy who lamented the waste of morning daylight when people slept in, advocating for an earlier start to the day. In the USA, daylight savings time...
That does sound like I know she's not talking about Benjamin Franklin, but it does seem like a Benjamin Franklin-esque observation, doesn't it?
People slept in, advocating for an earlier start to the day. In the USA, daylight savings time was introduced in 1918 as a wartime measure, but Americans were very unimpressed. It was so unpopular that it was repealed after the war. They just did not want to rise and shine. It then made a comeback during World War II and was reintroduced in the US during the 1970s energy crisis, reinforcing its link to energy conservation.
It's that recent? Really?
USA's Uniform Time Act of 1966 standardized daylight savings time across the country, although some states, such as Arizona and Hawaii, opted out due to their unique geographic and climate conditions. And if you're wondering if it's confusing if some states within the same country don't participate in daylight savings time, yes. Yes, it is.
It is confusing.
Anyway, if both the UK and the US observe daylight savings time, why do they switch their clocks on different dates? The answer lies in different government decisions.
Hang on, y'all. I gotta look this up. I believe that she's telling me the truth. This is the technical definition. It is the practice of advancing clocks to make better use of longer daylight available during summer so that darkness falls at a later clock time. So, yeah, I think I'm one of those people who wants daylight savings to be permanent. If I want the sun to be up later, I want daylight savings time year-round, right? So in December, the sun's setting at 5:45 instead of 4:45. Oh, some people are... Okay, so I think the reason we haven't made it permanent is because some people are arguing that it needs to stay the other way, where it's lighter in the morning. I don't like that. Yeah, and also if you have a 9-to-5 job, it's better to have more light in the evening. You can do stuff, right? You can go outside and collect bugs like this New Zealand entomologist George Hudson used to do. Tell me more, Kayla.
Why do they switch their clocks on different dates? The answer lies in different government decisions and policy evaluations over time. In the United Kingdom, British summertime begins the last Sunday in March and it ends the last Sunday in October. In the United States, daylight savings time begins the second Sunday in March and ends the first Sunday in November. This scheduling creates periods each year in March and October and November where the usual time difference between the UK and the US alters by an hour. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, London is typically 5 hours ahead of New York City. But during this period, it can reduce to 4 hours or extend to 6 hours depending on which country has altered its clocks first. Initially, the US actually followed a daylight savings schedule similar to Europe. However, the Energy Policy Act of 2005, which came into effect in 2007, extended daylight savings time in the US by 4 total weeks.
Oh. Hang on. The Energy Policy Act of 2005 is a statute which was passed by the United States and signed into law, provides tax incentives and loan guarantees for energy production of various types. Money, y'all. It's about money.
2007 extended daylight savings time in the US by 4 total weeks. And geography also significantly influences the practicality of daylight savings time. The vast expanses of the US span multiple time zones, comparing with the UK's single time zone. Northern US states benefit significantly from extended daylight hours, while states like Arizona and Hawaii see little advantage. In contrast, the UK's higher latitude makes the shift between summer and winter daylight hours much more pronounced. Without daylight savings time in the UK, summer mornings would begin very early, and winter evenings would become extremely dark, much darker than they already are.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about the latitude. That would make a difference, wouldn't it? More of a difference.
Actually been proposals for something called double summertime, which would be GMT plus 2 in the summer, but they face opposition, mostly from Scotland, where winter mornings would be overwhelmingly dark. And public sentiment about daylight savings time is polarized. Some enjoy the extra evening daylight, while others resent the disruption to their sleep patterns. In the US, several more states, including Florida and California, have passed some legislation to stay on permanent daylight savings time, but this change requires Congress's approval, which has not occurred.
Permanent daylight savings time's the way to go. I like it. Let's do it, y'all. I know most of my viewers are in the UK. It's probably different over there. I don't know.
In the UK, the debate also continues, but concerns over the impact on northern regions like the north of Scotland make a shift to permanent British Standard Time unlikely. And actually, over the years, the UK has experimented with different daylight savings time models. Notably, from 1968 to 1971, the UK stayed on British summertime year-round as part of an experiment they called British Standard Time.
What happened?
Ultimately, the experiment was abandoned due to public and political pressure. The likelihood of the UK and the US aligning their daylight savings time schedules remains very slim in the near future, and there's no real reason for it. The differences in policy, geography, and public opinion ensure that each country is continuing to adhere to its unique system, and again, within the US, some states are doing their own thing. For now, these biannual time shifts still lead to confusion during the transition period for international travelers, immigrants to the UK like myself, and businesses and events that coordinate things across the Atlantic during this time. Hope you learned a little something new. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Alright, y'all be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. Yeah, I want daylight savings time to be permanent. Permanent. But what's the deal in Scotland? What is the daylight savings time experience in Scotland? She was saying that Scotland doesn't like daylight savings time because the mornings are really dark. Is that right? Okay, currently in Scotland, sunrise is at 6:42 and sunset is at 7:58. That's great. That's perfect. Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. This is awesome. In December, wait, so this is the daylight savings time change right there, that line, right? So sunset in December is at 3:47. But that's the thing, right? If we had permanent daylight savings time, it would be 4:47. Am I doing this right? It would be later, right? Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, though. In the summer, sunset's not till 10 p.m. in Scotland. Whoa. That might be pretty weird in Scotland. And sunrise is at 4:30 a.m.? Yeah. Okay. I see it now. I see why it's strange. Huh. That's a huge difference, isn't it? I didn't realize that it affects people so differently. This video has opened my worldview. What do y'all think? Shouldn't daylight savings time be permanent? From my perspective, it should be, but maybe you have a different perspective. Maybe you like going to bed at 6 p.m. Some people do that, right? Waking up at 2 a.m. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.